Danny Cole sat alone in the small control room, watching numbers move across his computer screen. The room was cold and quiet. Outside, the New Mexico desert stretched for miles in every direction. There was nothing out there except sand, rocks, and the giant radio telescope that pointed up at the night sky. Danny was 32 years old. He had brown hair that was always a little messy and tired eyes that had seen too many late nights. He worked as a communications technician at this remote facility. His job was simple. He monitored radio signals from space and made sure the equipment worked properly. It was not an exciting job. Most nights, nothing happened at all. The facility used to be important. Years ago, scientists came here to search for signs of alien life. They listened to the stars, hoping to hear something. But funding was cut. People lost interest. Now only a few workers remained, and Danny was often the only one on the night shift. He did not mind being alone. In fact, he preferred it. Danny had never been good with people. He was quiet and kept to himself. He found machines easier to understand than humans. Machines did what they were supposed to do. People were complicated. Tonight was like any other night. Danny drank his coffee and watched the data scroll by. Static, background noise, the usual hum of the universe. He was about to get up and stretch his legs when something caught his eye. There was a pattern in the static. Danny leaned forward and looked more closely. At first he thought it was a glitch. The equipment here was old and sometimes it showed errors. But as he watched, he saw that the pattern was repeating. It was not random noise. It was structured, organized, like a message. His heart beat a little faster. He ran some tests to make sure the equipment was working correctly. Everything checked out fine. The signal was real. Danny pulled up more data on his screen. The signal was weak and broken. Large pieces of it were missing or corrupted. It was like trying to read a book with half the pages torn out. But even with all the damage, Danny could tell that this was not natural. Someone or something had created this signal on purpose. He should have called his supervisor. He should have reported the finding and let the experts handle it. That was the proper procedure. But Danny did not do that. Something about the signal called to him. It felt urgent, desperate, like someone crying out for help in the darkness. Danny began working on the signal. He used every tool and technique he knew. He compared the broken pieces to known patterns. He filled in gaps using mathematics and careful guessing. It was like solving a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. Hours passed. Danny did not notice. He forgot about his coffee. He forgot about food. He forgot about everything except the signal. The work consumed him completely. The signal was strange. It did not match any known format from Earth. The encoding was different. The frequency was unusual. But underneath all of that, Danny sensed something familiar. There was emotion in the signal, fear, loneliness, a desperate need to be heard. Danny worked for 3 days straight. He slept only in short bursts, his head resting on his desk. His thought he was crazy. They told him to take a break. They said he was wasting his time on what was probably just interference from a satellite. But Danny could not stop. He knew in his gut that this was real. This was important. On the third night, he finally finished. He had reconstructed the entire signal. The missing pieces were filled in. The corruption was cleaned up. What remained was clear and complete. Danny stared at his work. His hands were shaking. He had done something that should have been impossible. He had rebuilt a broken message from the stars using nothing but his own skills and instincts. Now came the hard part. What should he do with it? Danny thought about it for a long time. He could report it to his supervisors and let them decide. But that would take months. There would be meetings and discussions and committees. By the time anyone did anything, years might pass. The signal felt urgent. Whoever sent it needed help now. Danny made a decision. He would send a response. He would broadcast the repaired signal back into space along with a simple message of his own, a greeting, an acknowledgement, a way of saying, "I heard you." He set up the transmission. His finger hovered over the button. Part of him thought this was insane. He was just a technician at a forgotten facility in the middle of nowhere. Who was he to make contact with an alien civilization? But another part of him remembered all those lonely nights, sitting in the dark, wondering if there was anyone else out there, wondering if anyone would ever hear him. He pressed the button. The signal went out into the darkness. It traveled at the speed of light, racing across the empty space between stars. Danny watched it go, then leaned back in his chair and let out a long breath. He had done it. For better or worse, he had answered a call from the universe. The days that followed were quiet. Nothing happened. Danny started to doubt himself. Maybe he had imagined the whole thing. Maybe the signal was just noise after all. He certainly thought so. They looked at him with pity, like he was a man who had lost his mind. Danny returned to his normal routine. He monitored the equipment. He drank his coffee. He watched the stars, but part of him kept waiting, hopping, believing that somewhere out there someone had received his message. 3 weeks passed. Danny had almost given up hope. He was sitting in the control room, half asleep, when the ground beneath him began to shake. He jumped to his feet and ran outside. The night sky was clear and full of stars, but something was different. Something was wrong. Then he saw it. High above the desert, the sky itself seemed to crack open. Light poured through the crack, soft and silver like moonlight but much brighter. And through that light, something was coming down. A ship. Danny stood frozen as the vessel descended toward the facility. It made no sound at all. It was beautiful in a way he could not describe, with curves and shapes that seemed to flow like water. It did not look like anything made by human hands. The ship landed gently on the desert sand, just 100 feet away from where Danny stood. He could not move. He could not breathe. He could only watch as a door appeared in the side of the ship. Someone was about to step out, and Danny Cole's life was about to change forever. The door of the ship opened slowly. Silver light spilled out onto the desert sand. Danny stood completely still, his heart pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. His legs felt weak. His mouth was dry. He wanted to run, but his body refused to move. A figure appeared in the doorway. Danny squinted against the light, trying to see clearly. Then the figure stepped forward, and Danny forgot how to breathe. She was tall, at least 6 feet, with a slender body that moved with perfect grace. Her skin was silver white like polished metal, and it seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. Her hair was long and flowing, the color of deep space, black with tiny points of light scattered through it like stars. Her eyes were the most striking of all. They were violet, bright and deep, like looking into a distant galaxy. She wore robes that shimmered and changed color as she moved. Blue became purple, purple became gold, gold became silver. Danny had never seen fabric like that before. He had never seen anything like her before. Behind her, several other figures emerged from the ship. They were dressed in armor and carried weapons that Danny did not recognize. Guards, he realized. Soldiers. They stood at attention, their faces blank and unreadable. But the woman paid no attention to her guards. Her eyes were fixed on Danny. She walked toward him with slow, measured steps. The sand did not seem to touch her feet. She moved like she was floating. Danny's brain screamed at him to do something. Say something. Run. Hide. Anything. But he could only stand there like a statue as she stopped in front of him, close enough that he could feel warmth coming from her body. She studied his face for a long moment. Her violet eyes seemed to look right through him, seeing things that Danny did not even know were there. Then she spoke. Her voice was beautiful. It was soft and musical, but it carried weight and power. Each word pressed against Danny's chest like a gentle hand. "You are the one," she said. "You are the one who repaired the signal." It was not a question, she knew. Somehow she knew exactly what he had done. Danny managed to nod. His voice came out as a rough whisper. "Yes, that was me." Something changed in her eyes. The coldness melted away, replaced by something warmer, something like wonder. For 300 cycles, my transmission called out for rescue, she said. My ship was damaged. I was drifting at the edge of a dying star system. The emergency beacon was my only hope, but the signal was corrupted, broken. No one could read it. She paused, and Danny saw pain flash across her face. 300 cycles. He did not know exactly how long that was in Earth years, but he understood that it was a very, very long time. 1,000 civilizations heard my cry, she continued. The greatest scientists and engineers in the galaxy tried to reconstruct the signal. They all failed. They said it was impossible. The damage was too severe. The information was lost forever. She reached out and touched Danny's face. Her fingers were warm, almost hot, and impossibly soft. Danny felt a shiver run down his spine. And then you answered, she whispered. A single being on a small, forgotten world. You did what entire empires could not do. You heard my voice in the static. You understood my fear. You rebuilt my broken words and sent them back to me. Her eyes filled with tears. They were silver like liquid metal, and they rolled down her cheeks in slow, beautiful trails. You saved me, she said. You brought me home. Danny did not know what to say. He had just been doing his job. He had just been following his instincts. He never imagined that his work would mean so much to someone. I am, she said, stepping back and straightening her posture, High Princess of the Dominion, heir to the throne of stars, and I owe you a debt that can never be repaid. Danny blinked. Princess. She was a princess, an alien princess from a galactic empire, and she was standing in front of him in the New Mexico desert, thanking him for fixing her radio signal. The world suddenly felt very unreal. My name is Danny, he managed to say. Danny Cole, I'm just a technician. Smiled. It was a beautiful smile, warm and genuine, and it made her whole face light up. You are much more than that, Danny Cole, she said. You have a gift, a power that my people lost long ago. You can feel meaning in chaos. You can find patterns where others see only noise. You can bridge the gap between the broken and the whole. She took his hand in hers. Her grip was gentle but firm. In my culture, when someone saves a member of the royal family, a bond is created, a connection that cannot be ignored. You are now tied to me, Danny Cole, and I am tied to you. Danny's head was spinning. This was too much, too fast. He was just a lonely guy who fixed radios for a living. He was not supposed to be bonded to alien princesses. What does that mean? He asked. This bond. His expression became serious. It means that you must come with me, back to the Dominion. There you will be honored as a hero. You will be given a place in my court. You will be protected and respected for the rest of your days. Danny looked back at the facility behind him. The old building, the broken equipment, the empty coffee cups and the lonely nights. What was there for him here? A job that nobody cared about, a life that nobody noticed. He looked at her silver skin and violet eyes, at the ship that had come from the stars, at the universe that had suddenly opened up before him. Okay, he said quietly, I'll come with you. Smile returned, brighter than before. She squeezed his hand and led him toward the ship. The guards parted to let them pass. As Danny stepped through the doorway and into the vessel, he took one last look at the desert behind him, at the earth he was leaving behind. He felt fear, yes, but also excitement, wonder, hope. He had spent his whole life listening to the stars, waiting for something to happen. And now, finally, something had. The door closed behind him. The ship rose silently into the sky, and Danny Cole left his old life behind forever. The journey through space took 7 days. Danny spent most of that time staring out the windows of the ship, watching stars and planets pass by like glowing jewels in the darkness. He had dreamed of seeing the universe his whole life. Now he was flying through it, and it was more beautiful than he had ever imagined. Stayed close to him during the journey. She explained things to him, answered his questions, and helped him understand the new world he was entering. She was patient and kind, never making him feel stupid for not knowing things that were obvious to her. She told him about the Dominion. It was a coalition of 12 star systems, home to billions of beings. Her family had ruled the Dominion for thousands of years. They had built an empire based on logic, order, and careful planning. Everything in society was organized and efficient. There was no waste, no chaos, no surprises. But there was also no creativity, no passion, no spark. Danny learned that the people had changed themselves long ago. They had used technology to remove what they called inefficient emotions from their minds. Fear, anger, love, jealousy, all of these had been reduced to faint echoes of what they once were. The belief this made them better, smarter, stronger. But told Danny that something had been lost in the process. Her people could think clearly, but they could not dream. They could solve problems, but they could not imagine new possibilities. They had gained order, but they had lost their soul. That is why no one could repair my signal, explained one evening. They were sitting in a small room with a window that looked out at a nebula of purple and gold. The signal was not just damaged, it was incomplete. To fix it, you had to fill in the missing pieces with intuition, with feeling, with imagination. She looked at Danny with those violet eyes that seemed to see everything. My people cannot do that anymore, she said. We see only what is there. We cannot see what could be there, but you can. Humans can. You felt my fear and my loneliness in that broken signal. You understood me even though you had never met me. You used your heart as much as your mind. Danny thought about this for a long time. He had always considered himself ordinary, average, nothing special, but was telling him that the things he took for granted were actually rare and precious. The ability to guess, to imagine, to feel connections that logic could not explain. Maybe being human was more valuable than he had realized. When they finally arrived at Danny was not prepared for what he saw. The planet was enormous, covered in cities that stretched from horizon to horizon. Buildings rose miles into the sky, their surfaces smooth and perfect. Ships flew through the air in orderly patterns, never colliding, never deviating from their paths. Everything was beautiful, everything was precise, and everything felt strangely cold. His return caused a sensation. The princess who had been lost for 300 years was suddenly back, alive and well. News spread across the planet within hours. Crowds gathered to see her. Officials and nobles rushed to greet her. The whole empire seemed to hold its breath. And at the center of it all was Danny, the human, the alien, the strange creature from a primitive world who had somehow saved their princess. Not everyone was happy about this. Danny quickly learned that society was complicated. There were factions and alliances, old rivalries and hidden agendas. When disappeared 3 centuries ago, many people had assumed she was dead. Power had shifted. New leaders had risen, and some of those leaders did not want things to change back. One of those leaders was Lord. Was tall and imposing, with sharp features and cold gray eyes. He had been one of the top candidates to take the throne after his disappearance. He had spent centuries building his power and influence. He was not pleased to see the princess return, and he was even less pleased to see the human who had brought her back. Danny felt hatred the first time they met. The Lord looked at him like he was an insect, something to be crushed and forgotten. He said polite words, but his eyes said something very different. Danny knew he had made an enemy. But he also had a friend. Stayed by his side, introducing him to the court, teaching him the customs, protecting him from those who wished him harm. She gave him rooms in the royal palace, servants to attend to his needs, and access to technology that seemed like magic. More than that, she gave him her trust. She spent hours talking with him, sharing her thoughts and feelings, asking about his life on Earth. Danny realized that despite being a princess, was lonely. She had been drifting in space for 300 years with only her own thoughts for company. She had returned to find that everyone she knew was gone. Her friends had died. Her parents had died. The world she remembered had changed beyond recognition. Danny understood loneliness. He had felt it his whole life, and so he listened to her, comforted her, and helped her face the challenges of her new situation. One evening, they stood on a balcony overlooking the endless city. Two suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that did not exist on Earth. "Why did you really do it?" asked quietly. "Why did you spend 3 days fixing a signal that everyone else ignored?" Danny thought about the question. He had asked himself the same thing many times. "Because I heard you," he finally said. "Not just the signal, you, your fear, your hope, your refusal to give up. I knew you were out there waiting for someone to answer, and I couldn't just walk away." Turned to look at him. Her violet eyes were shining with emotion. "My people would say that is irrational," she said. "Inefficient, a waste of resources." Danny shrugged. "Maybe it is, but it's also what makes us human." Smiled, and for a moment, she looked almost human herself. "Yes," she said softly, "and that is why I believe humans will change the galaxy forever." Danny did not know if she was right, but standing there on that alien world, watching suns set that he had never seen before, he allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he had finally found where he belonged. Danny had been living in the palace for 2 months when the trouble started. He was beginning to feel comfortable in his new life. He had learned the language, understood the customs, and made a few friends among the servants and lower nobles. Spent time with him every day, and their friendship had grown into something deeper, something that made Danny's heart beat faster whenever she walked into a room. But comfort was a dangerous thing. It made Danny forget that he was still an outsider, that there were people who wanted him gone, that Lord was watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. That moment came during a formal gathering of the High Court. Hundreds of nobles had gathered in the great hall of the palace, sat on a throne at the head of the room, dressed in robes of flowing silver. Danny stood nearby, trying to look like he belonged. He did not. Rose from his seat and walked to the center of the hall. His voice was cold and sharp as he addressed the assembly. "My lords and ladies," he said, "I have a matter of great importance to discuss. It concerns the human who stands among us." Danny felt every eye in the room turn toward him. His stomach tightened. "This creature claims to have saved our princess," continued. "He claims a bond with the royal family. He claims a place in our court, but what proof do we have of his worth? He is from a primitive world, a backward species that has not even mastered space travel. He has no training, no education, no achievements. He is nothing but a common worker who got lucky." Turned to face Danny directly. His gray eyes were full of contempt. "I challenge the human to a trial of worth," he declared. "Let him prove that he deserves to stand among us. Let him fight for his place." The room erupted in whispers. Danny did not understand what was happening, but he could see from his face that it was bad. She had gone pale, and her hands were gripping the arms of her throne. She stood quickly. "Lord, the trial of worth has not been invoked in 500 years. It is an archaic ritual from a barbaric age. I refuse to allow it." Smiled. It was a cold, cruel smile that did not reach his eyes. "With respect, Your Highness, you do not have the authority to refuse. The trial of worth is written into the fundamental laws of the Dominion. Any noble may challenge any non-noble who claims status in the court. The challenged party must accept or be branded a coward and expelled forever." His face twisted with anger. "This is a trap. The trial is designed for trained warriors. Danny is not a soldier. You are sentencing him to death." "If he is truly worthy, he will survive," said smoothly. "If not, then he never deserved to be here in the first place." Danny watched this exchange with growing dread. He understood now. This was plan all along. The Lord could not attack directly, so he was attacking the person closest to her. If Danny refused the challenge, he would be forced to leave. If he accepted, would kill him. There was no way out. Danny stepped forward before could speak again. His voice was steady, even though his hands were shaking. "I accept the challenge," he said. The whispers stopped. Everyone stared at him. Smile grew wider. "Very well. The trial will take place in 3 days. I look forward to educating you on combat." That night came to Danny's room. Her eyes were red from crying. "You fool," she said. "You beautiful fool. Why did you accept? Is one of the greatest warriors in the Dominion. He has trained for centuries. You cannot defeat him." Danny took her hands in his. They were trembling. "If I refused, I would lose you," he said quietly. "I would rather die than let that happen." Stared at him. Then she threw her arms around him and held him tight. "Then we will find a way," she whispered. "We will find a way for you to win." The next 3 days were the hardest of Danny's life. He trained constantly, learning everything he could about combat. The fighting style was beautiful but rigid, built on centuries of tradition and unchanging techniques. Every move had a name. Every response had a counter. It was like chess with swords. Danny knew he could never match skill. The Lord had hundreds of years of experience. He was faster, stronger, and more precise. In a fair fight, Danny would lose in seconds. So Danny decided not to fight fair. On the day of the trial, the great arena was filled with thousands of spectators. Stood on one side, dressed in ceremonial armor, holding a blade that glowed with blue light. He looked confident, relaxed, already celebrating his victory. Danny stood on the other side, wearing simple clothes and carrying a standard sword. He looked small and weak compared to his opponent. The crowd murmured with pity and contempt. The signal was given. The fight began. Attacked immediately, his blade moving in perfect, deadly arcs. Danny barely managed to dodge the first strike, and the second, and the third. He stumbled backward, desperately trying to stay alive. The crowd laughed. This was not a fight, this was an execution. But Danny was watching, learning, analyzing. His movements were perfect, but that was also his weakness. He followed the traditional patterns exactly. He expected his opponent to do the same. Every attack had a predicted response. Every defense had a planned counter. Danny started to see the gaps. Launched another attack, expecting Danny to block high. Instead, Danny dropped to the ground and rolled between the Lord's legs. Before could turn, Danny kicked the back of his knee. Stumbled, the crowd gasped. The fight changed after that. Danny did not try to match skill. He fought like a human. He threw sand in his eyes. He used the pillars of the arena for cover. He attacked from unexpected angles. He did things that had no name in combat. Grew frustrated. His perfect form began to break down. He made mistakes. Small ones at first, then larger ones. Danny was bleeding from a dozen cuts. His body screamed with pain, but he kept moving, kept thinking, kept looking for an opening. It came when overextended on a killing strike. Danny twisted away, grabbed the Lord's arm, and used his own momentum against him. His blade flew from his hand. Danny caught it and pressed the edge against throat. The arena fell silent. Danny stood there, breathing hard, blood dripping from his wounds. He had won. Against all odds, against all logic, he had won. Stared up at him with pure hatred in his eyes. "Yield," Danny said quietly. For a long moment, nothing happened, then slowly lowered his head. "I yield," he whispered. The crowd exploded with noise. Danny barely heard it. He dropped the sword and fell to his knees, exhausted beyond words. Was at his side in seconds, tears streaming down her face. She held him close, not caring that everyone was watching. "You did it," she said. "You impossible, wonderful human, you did it." Danny smiled weakly and closed his eyes. He had survived. He had proven his worth. and nothing would ever be the same again. Danny woke up in a medical chamber 3 days after the trial. His body was wrapped in healing bandages that glowed with soft blue light. The wounds that should have taken months to heal were already closing. Medicine was remarkable. Was sitting beside him, holding his hand. She had not left his side since the fight ended. "You're awake," she said softly. Her voice was filled with relief and something else, something warmer. Danny tried to sit up, but his muscles protested. He settled for squeezing her hand instead. "Did I really win?" he asked. His voice was rough from disuse. "Or did I dream that part?" Laughed. It was a beautiful sound, light and musical. "You really won. The entire Dominion is talking about it. The human who defeated Lord in single combat. They do not know what to think of you." Danny smiled weakly. "I don't know what to think of me either." Over the next few weeks, as Danny recovered, he learned just how much had changed. Defeat had done more than prove Danny's worth. It had exposed the Lord's true character. An investigation revealed that had known about's distress signal for decades. He had deliberately suppressed rescue efforts so that the princess would remain lost. He had wanted the throne for himself and was willing to let die alone in space to get it. The evidence was overwhelming, was stripped of his titles, his lands, and his position. He was exiled to a distant moon where he would spend the rest of his long life in isolation. His conspiracy was ended. Danny became a hero, not just to, but to the entire Dominion. He was given the title of Noble Protector, a rank that had not been awarded to anyone in over 1,000 years. He was given citizenship, property, and a seat on the High Council. A human, a member of a species that most had never even heard of, was now one of the most important people in the Empire. But none of that mattered as much as what happened between Danny and... One evening, about a month after the trial, came to Danny in his chambers. She was dressed simply, without the formal robes she usually wore in public. Her silver hair was loose, falling down her back like a waterfall of starlight. She looked nervous, which was something Danny had never seen before. "There is something I need to tell you," she said. "Something I have wanted to say for a long time." Danny stood and faced her. His heart was beating fast. He had a feeling he knew what was coming. "When I was lost in space," began, "I had nothing but time. Time to think. Time to dream. And I did dream, Danny. Every night for 300 years I dreamed of being rescued. I dreamed of someone finding me. And in those dreams I saw a face." She stepped closer to him. Her violet eyes were shining with emotion. "I saw your face," she whispered. "Before we ever met, before you fixed my signal, before any of this happened, I saw you, Danny Cole. I knew you were out there somewhere, waiting for me." Danny's breath caught in his throat. He remembered what she had said when she first stepped out of her ship, the words that had seemed impossible at the time. "You're the person I've been dreaming of." "I do not fully understand it," continued. "Perhaps it was just coincidence. Perhaps my mind created an image that happened to match you. Or perhaps," she paused, searching for words, "perhaps some connections are written into the universe itself. Perhaps we were meant to find each other." Danny reached out and took her hands. They were warm and soft, fitting perfectly in his. "I'm just a technician from a small planet," he said quietly. "I'm not a warrior, I'm not a prince, I'm not anyone special." Shook her head. "You are the most special person I have ever known. You have shown my people something they forgot long ago. That logic is not everything. That emotions are not weaknesses. That sometimes the most important thing is not what you know, but what you feel." She stepped even closer, until their faces were only inches apart. "I want to invoke the right of," she said, "the bonding of two souls into one. It is the highest commitment in culture. It would make you my partner in all things, my equal, my love." Danny felt tears forming in his eyes, happy tears. "Are you asking me to marry you?" he asked. Smiled, in human terms, "Yes, I am asking you to marry me." Danny did not hesitate. He pulled her close and kissed her. It was their first kiss, and it was perfect, warm and sweet and full of promise. "Yes," he said when they finally pulled apart. "Yes, I will marry you." The wedding was held 1 month later. It was the largest celebration in history. Billions watched as the human and the princess exchanged vows. Many did not understand it. Some did not approve. But no one could deny the love that shone between them. After the ceremony, Danny was named the official ambassador of humanity. His first task was to return to Earth and prepare his people for what was coming. The galaxy knew about humans now. Soon, other species would come. Some would be friendly, others would not. Earth needed to be ready. Danny stood on the bridge of a ship, looking at the blue marble of his home planet through the window. Stood beside him, her hand in his. "Are you scared?" she asked. Danny thought about the question. He thought about everything that had happened since that night in the radio telescope facility. The broken signal, the princess from the stars, the trial, the love that had grown between two beings who should never have met. "A little," he admitted, "but I'm also excited. Humans have always wondered if we were alone in the universe. Now we know we're not. We have so much to learn, so much to do, so much to become." Squeezed his hand. "You will need to teach your people what you taught mine. That strength is not just about power or logic. That sometimes the heart sees what the mind cannot." Danny nodded. He knew it would not be easy. Humanity was messy and complicated and often foolish. But they were also brave and creative and stubborn. They never gave up, even when things seemed impossible. Just like Danny had not given up on a broken signal in the middle of the night. "We'll figure it out," he said. "That's what humans do." The ship descended toward Earth, carrying a message from the stars. A message of hope, a message of change, a message that the universe was bigger and stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. And at the center of it all was a quiet technician who had simply answered a call for help. Danny Cole looked out at his home planet and smiled. The stars were no longer silent, and humanity's story was just beginning.